So, good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to the Denver Walk and Bike Loops panel and engaging in the Denver Streets for People Summit. I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the Denver Community Active Living Coalition, and our co-host, the Denver Streets Partnership. I just want to go over our Microsoft Teams functions real quick as we're getting started. So we have the recording session. So this is a recorded session. If you do not want to be on camera, we highly recommend you turn off your webcam by pressing the camera button right next to it. While this presentation is going on, just press the microphone button to mute and unmute yourself. We highly recommend you mute yourself during the session so we don't have any background noise. Then we have the three dots, which you can adjust your video, mic settings, or turn on closed captioning. We have our open chat, which is going to be the little chat bubble, where you can put any questions you have for our speakers or if you're having any problems with technology. And you have the red button that looks like a phone, and that's our hang up button, which you don't need to use it to the very end of the session. Now we're going to go into our code of conduct. We value and proactively engage people of diverse experiences and perspectives, and we treat all people regardless of age, race, ability, and other backgrounds with kindness and respect. When you registered for this event, you are joining our community and embracing this value. Thank you for making the Denver Streets Partnership, the Denver Streets for People Summit, a welcoming, safe, and positive environment for all. I want to introduce our producers for this session, which will be me, Lauren Bradley. I'll be moderating the chat, and then Kayla Gilbert, who will be running our slides for this presentation. Now I want to introduce our moderator, which is Pete Van Hueven from Bicycle, Colorado, and our panelists, Myron Gonzalez from Montbello Organizing Committee and FreshLo Walkable Loop, Eric Clark, Urban Land Conservancy and Free Artway, Adam Perkins, Downtown Denver Partnership and 5280 Loop, and Shandi Aldana, the Trust for Public Land in Westwood Via Verde. I'll turn it over to Pete.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for the Loops panel. I am Pete Van Huven, and since I had to submit a bio for this, I'm going to, if you will indulge me, go ahead and read a bit about it. Self-proclaimed accidental bike advocate, having grown up in the Foreign Service. And so I grew up riding my bike in European capitals like Bonn and The Hague and Geneva. Rode my bike around my college campus. And then I really had the opportunity to get back into bikes in 2008 because I got involved in the Freewheelin' Bike Share project at the 2008 Democratic National Convention. That was sort of the precursor for the launch of Denver's first large-scale bike share system, Denver B-Cycle. So today, actually, I'm at Bicycle Colorado. It's the state bike advocacy organization. I'm the director of government relations, and I'm working on statewide efforts to improve bike infrastructure and policy and access. Really delighted to moderate today, and let's get right into the meat of it. We're going to do some quick introductions. You're going to hear from each of our panelists in turn and learn a little bit about each of their projects. What I think is so fantastic about this session and each of these projects is the way that they help show the sort of fresh, locally inspired and unique opportunities to experience local cultures in a really tangible and relational way. And they're in different parts of Denver. So on the west side, northeast area, in the local neighborhoods surrounding downtown. So let's get to it. We are going to go ahead and ask each of our panelists in turn to briefly introduce themselves, who they are, where their project is, and maybe how COVID has impacted it recently, and talk just quickly in a high-level way about their effort. So we'll start with Myra Gonzalez from Montbello FreshLo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peep. And thank you so much, everybody who's joining us today on day 4 of the Denver Streets for People Summit. If you caught us this morning, Christian from Denver Calc and I did a virtual tour of the Montbello FreshLo Walkable Loop. I am the project manager for this loop. I work with the Montbello Organizing Committee, and we are located in far northeast Denver, specifically in the Montbello community. And so if you joined us in the morning, we started off where the green little arrowhead is, the number 1, our future site for the Montbello FreshLo initiative project. And basically, our loop started a couple of years ago. And right now we are, in the planning process. COVID has definitely thrown in a monkey wrench into our plans, but it hasn't stopped us from continuing to engage with the community. We have continued to engage in different activities and projects. One of them being bike rides either along the loop or in the community, but they were born from the loop. And so we have community members, specifically Latina moms, who are leading family bike rides with children and parents. Something that I was really excited to share was that a lot of these family bike rides include fathers, which if you're out in community space, you know how hard it is to engage the dads. And so we're really proud of that it's really a family led, and it's, engaging families out in the far northeast. We have a lot of built environment goals, definitely making the streets a lot safer for the community to ride and bike. If you joined us, you saw that we have a couple streets and intersections that are kind of tricky. They don't feel the best. If you're riding or walking even, you don't feel the most secure. You really are battling up against incoming car traffic, vehicle traffic. If you saw us right at the beginning, we were competing against cars, competing against buses to really ride on the street because the streets are so narrow. But we really want to work on that. We want to highlight community voices to bring up their solutions, what they're feeling, and really working with our partners. On the slide I am sharing, that is being shared, we have 23 different community partners, Dottie being one of them. The city has been a great partner. We have a lot of different infrastructure improvements coming along, some of them that intersect with the loop that we're really excited to contribute to and be a part of. Let me remember what the other questions were. But yeah, that is us. We're continuing to engage folks. We had a couple events this summer with Dottie, where we did some bicycling, the Accidental Bike Club, which was born out of the Montbello FreshLo Walkable Loop. And the parents that I mentioned previously, they were able to get folks basically biking starter kits. So everything you need besides a bike to ride safely in the community. And that included helmets, lighting, because our community is so dark at night, bike locks so that you can safely keep your bike either at home or if you go to the store or something, handheld bike pumps, and then some patches. So if you get a flat on the road, you are definitely able to fix that up. We're really excited that we're really near the Montbello bike course. And so this year our participants are definitely learning those skills they need to ride on the street so that they can take charge as they're going through the loop. And I just saw a comment that asks, what does FreshLo mean? FreshLo means fresh, equitable, and local. And we are part of a national group of organizations that was funded by the Kresge Foundation.
That's fantastic. Myra, I thoroughly enjoyed your virtual tour this morning. I know that's still up on the Calc Instagram account, totally worth checking out there. So now we're going to hear from Erin Clark, who's going to talk to us about 303 Artway, close to my heart, because I live close to Park Hill. So let's hear from Erin.
Thank you, Peep. Thank you, everyone who's here today. Happy to join you this afternoon. I'm Erin Clark. I oversee master site development for Urban Land Conservancy, which is a locally based nonprofit real estate development group. And 303 Artway actually started with some development work that we were doing years ago. We purchased property in the northwest corner of what you see in the map on the slide in front of you, close to, really adjacent to the A-line train station. That's the train, the light rail between, or commuter rail between Union Station downtown and the airport. And as we were doing work around how we were going to develop affordable housing in this location and really assessing community needs, we kept hearing that, you know, people were excited that a train was coming, but how were they really going to get there? As you can see in the map, there's the Park Hill Golf Course is a huge barrier between where the train station is in the top northwest corner and kind of the rest of Northeast Park Hill. And so we wanted to get involved to see how we could help kind of stitch some key destinations in the area together, to help kind of work with creating a community coalition around connecting some of those things. So the proposed pathway for the 303 Artway is what you're seeing here. Is the connection at the southeast edge is the former Holly Square shopping center. And we did a lot of redevelopment work with community there as well a number of years ago, to bring forth with community support the Boys and Girls Club that's there, and the former Roots Charter School that is now the home to the Center for African American Health. So that's a key destination. There's been a redevelopment of the former Dahlia shopping center, and then again trying to just help stitch together some of these key destinations in the neighborhood. And we also really wanted to help elevate the cultural heritage of Northeast Park Hill. It is a really unique neighborhood in Denver, in terms of being historically African American. A lot of amazing figures, important figures, have grown up there or have connections to this area. And so what we're looking at is essentially a 9-mile loop to go. And what we're showing now is kind of the way to go around the golf course, as there are conversations happening currently around what the future of the Park Hill Golf Course could be. We want that, whether it's going to remain all open space or if there would be some level of development, we are working hard with all of the decision makers to see that there's a direct connection diagonally across the golf course to kind of make that direct connection to the neighborhood. But in the meantime, we're looking at how we can go around it in a meaningful way. So what we've been doing over the past number of years, and last year, in 2019 in particular, was a very strong community engagement effort. We have formed a steering committee that has helped guide some of the design decisions. And because we're looking at both infrastructure improvements in terms of, here I heard with Montbello, they were mentioning some narrow streets. Our concern is really a lot of wide streets and really substandard sidewalks. And some places where the sidewalks just don't connect. So how can we help fill in those gaps? So we've done walk audits. We did a pop-up event with some Vision Zero funding at the corner of 35th and Holly to look at what a bike lane could look like there. And we also have done some cultural-based events. We did an I Am Denver storytelling lab to collect stories from local neighbors, or just folks who have had relationships with the community, with this particular community over time, to let us know what they care about in this community, so that we can bring art along the way and tell their stories and really have that be highlighted across this trail. So we're very excited. And in terms of COVID, that has definitely limited our community engagement this year, but we are shifting into more of our design work now. So instead of having a big gathering, we put together a corridor study, a 36-page corridor study with our proposed improvements across the trail, that we wanted to kind of have a big rollout at a meeting. We weren't able to do that. We did a survey instead. So we were just going to have to do some more online engagement as we go. But right now we're doing a lot of architecture work and working with the city of Denver on design and permitting.
That's fantastic. I'm just looking at your map, and I'm thinking I should make this my new jogging route. It's right around the corner. Thank you so much, Erin. Adam Perkins from the Downtown Denver Partnership is going to talk to us next. And I love this project because I was around in the days when this was just a little twinkle in the side of John Desmond's eye at the Downtown Denver Partnership as a concept. And I've actually lost track of it in the past 2 years, so I'm really interested to hear Adam's update. So Adam, tell us, where is the 5280 loop now?
I was on mute. Thank you, Peep. I'm Adam Perkins. I'm the Urban Planning Manager for the Downtown Denver Partnership. We're a nonprofit business organization focusing on planning and developing downtown to make it as attractive and as a nice of a place to be that people want to be there. And so 5280 Trail as a 5.280 mile loop around downtown is really meant to be that opportunity to get outdoors and really have that access to nature and to trees and to connect our Center City neighborhoods together through a cohesive path so that someone who is in Golden Triangle can easily make it over to Lodo, or someone in Five Points can make the connection down to Lincoln Park and to all the different neighborhoods that this touches through. We kind of started this project about 5 years ago from John Desmond, and he's on this panel, in this meeting. I can see him there. So he definitely kind of kicked all of this off. And we made a pivot about 2 years ago when a bunch of development was happening around the trail. We needed to get some design guidelines. So we kind of focused in on what the design details could look like. And over the years, we've developed a really strong vision, really strong design, thinking about the materials and the type of vegetation that could go in here. And now with COVID, we're making a pivot again and really finding a way to say, how do we go a little bit faster on this progress? How do we take what we've learned from the open streets and the temporary recreational streets from the city is doing around the city and say, can we learn from that and actually take some areas along this route and temporarily close those streets down to vehicles and make them shared streets, and then market all the way around in a more affordable way. So we're looking at doing, at the very least, some signage around the entire route, and then add in this idea of these urban cairns. Since the kind of the vision of this spot was to have a trail. And so you can see in the center of this picture, there's a kind of a stack of rocks. So you see those cairns on a hiking trail all the time. It helps you find your way. So we were looking with some local artists and how we can create some big one of those. And he was like, well, why don't you just go to wayfair.com and buy a bunch of fiberglass ones? And so we found this product. And so we're working closely with the city on putting those out all the way around that 5 mile route and on top of the signage. And this is really a part of the mayor's Economic Relief and Recovery Council, is finding ways to how we can recover from this COVID time and this hard times that our businesses are having. So by providing more of this outdoor space, by providing that reason for people to come downtown and start to navigate around Center City, it's a part of that relief program. And so we're working on some potential grant funding to pay for some of that. We have some donors that can pay for a part of it. So hopefully we can close the gap on that and allow a lot of that to happen. And our really kind of bigger goal on this is how we make it more colorful, more artistic, how we add more art in the street, both in just painting all the way around and some sort of trail or some sort of paint marking, but really use some of the grant funding that we still have left over and hand that over to the community and say, okay, if this is all already marked, if we have this 5 mile route marked, and people can navigate it and make an easy way around it, if each neighborhood group or different organizations around the route could start doing things like parklets, so like the pictures on the bottom, taking over a parking spot and adding some planters and some benches and some of the own painting. So it really starts, the design itself becomes more of that community-led, here's the design, and all we're doing is just making that cohesive marking around the route, which goes back to the original vision of the 5280 is really about linking together great places and more about each place themselves. So trying to really find a way to do that in a quicker, cheaper, faster way.
Fantastic. I'm blown away by the progress and all of the wonderful color in the slide. Thank you. So I love all of these trails, but I am going to say maybe we're saving the best for last. So we're going to hear from Chandi, who's going to talk to us about the Westwood Via Verde. And the reason this one just has a special place in my heart is that if I have this right, the story behind it is just pretty inspirational. It's a bunch of neighborhood moms who got inspired and tough and said, we need a neighborhood walking route and let's get to work. So Chandi, is that right? And please tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Chandi Aldina. I'm the project manager for our Parks for People program at the Trust for Public Land. And that's right. The Westwood Via Verde is really a vision that came directly from residents wanting to create a safer, healthier community for their families to live and for their kids to grow up in. So the Westwood Via Verde is, like its name suggests, in the Denver neighborhood of Westwood. And it's a 3-mile neighborhood greenway project with the goal to achieve health, equity, and climate outcomes. The Westwood Via Verde is a connected system of multi-benefit green infrastructure to improve water quality, increase tree canopy, and support community empowerment and job creation. So it's both a walking and biking route with this really bold vision to create a network of existing green spaces and potential new spaces such as a neighborhood bikeway, green streets, parks, and enhanced alleys. The Westwood Via Verde is going to provide all of those things, as well as safe and culturally rich spaces for individuals of all ages to get out and be active and really build the neighborhood pride, which the residents have been building on for many, many years through various built environment projects in the community. And the cool thing is this greenway it's going to serve roughly 24,000 residents who live within a 10-minute walk of that trail. So just kind of as a background from last year's summit, we were in the process of going through the creation of plan for the Westwood Via Verde, so an implementation plan that really took this big idea that came from the community and was in the neighborhood plan and fleshed that out further, looking at what could be the potential projects, small scale, as well as really big green infrastructure projects that we could take on as a coalition of partners. So it really led to a unique partnership between the Trust for Public Land, Denver Parks and Recreation, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment, as well as many community residents and leaders and other neighborhood organizations like Buku West and Revision. So the implementation plan included ideas like wayfinding elements, green infrastructure, tree planting projects, as well as creative placemaking. And we completed that plan last year. And after that, one of the priorities that the community told us from that plan was to create more of a physical wayfinding plan so that we could really show where this trail is. What you're looking at on the screen is the path that we have, but for those of us who are involved in it, we know where the trail leads, but right now there aren't major wayfinding or signage to direct people to actually walk along the trail. So that's what we've been doing since last year. We've been working on this wayfinding plan. So from fall 2019 to spring 2020, we convened a group of steering committee members who are stakeholders from the process, community members, as well as leaders and folks from the city. And we worked with a consultant to create this wayfinding plan, which has now been completed and reviewed. So what is included in that is a branding guideline. So our consultant worked with us to figure out what's a good logo for the Greenway, something that'll really exemplify the Westwood culture and really create this image for the Westwood Via Verde. As well as the steering committee came up with a tagline for the Via Verde, which is Westwood Via Verde, we move together. And that was a collaborative process. We had a workshop around the guideline, and That's the tagline that everyone felt really encompassed the spirit of the Via Verde. And then from that document, we also have wayfinding elements that include intersection murals, kiosk bench combinations, pole banners, fence banners, directional signs, directional sidewalk decals, yard signs, papel picados, cairns, similar to what Adam was talking about, but will be unique to Westwood, wayfinding markers with lights, curb and sidewalk painting, and then other artwork and murals throughout the neighborhood. So we have all of these really great ideas to implement for the wayfinding plan, and we had planned on starting those this summer. Unfortunately, with COVID, that really did affect the project. Our initial plan was to work with Calc and start those intersection murals in April. As that came up, we had to make the really hard decision to cancel the big event and postpone the rest of the intersection murals. So we took time to really think through how could we safely install murals with the community where they are able to participate, but at the same time, we're not putting anyone, the public health at risk, right? So I'm happy to say that we were successful in figuring out a way to bring some community together. And Kayla and I and others spent a lot of time thinking through how to pull this off. And in August, we were able to install the first intersection mural along the Westwood Via Verde. It's over by Castro Elementary School. And then at the end of this month, we'll do a second one over at Monroe Elementary School. So although we've had a lot of setbacks as far as implementation, we're starting to find ways to continue to move the project forward.
Okay, wow. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. This is such an amazing body of work, so much creativity and different ways in which they reflect the community and show how to work effectively with community and as a result then work effectively with government. So what we're going to do now with this second portion of our time is I have a few questions I'm going to pose to the panelists, and then we're going to turn to audience Q&A. So now's the time to start thinking up your questions. Go ahead and begin to put them in the chat at any time. And our team behind the scenes from Calc is going to begin to organize those. So if you have questions, go ahead and start dropping them into the chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to ask all of our panelists to answer, and we'll stick with the same order if that's okay. So we'll start with Myra. But my question really is about the genesis, the idea behind this. Like, what started this project for you? What was the big idea or the big need that was behind it? And how did your community start to come together behind the idea? So bring us back to the start and tell us a little bit about that story. And again, we'll start with Myra.
Yeah, so for us, it was really food access that started the whole Montbello FreshLo initiative. Somebody asked, what does FreshLo stand for? And it's fresh, equitable, and local. And we started our organizing efforts back in 2015 when we lost our grocery store, effectively becoming a food desert. And so we saw the need to really advocate for that. And as a community, we did everything that we needed to do. We went out and surveyed the community. We engaged the community. We activated a lot of community initiatives and started advocating with the city. And eventually that led us to the FreshLo project. And so it was food access that got us here. When we were doing a lot of the work, we had created a vision that we wanted a cultural hub. And so folks might be wondering, well, what does this have to do with the loop? And it's basically that the loop was born out of this hub idea, and that we needed to connect residents directly to food, local food sources, healthy food sources. And here in the community, we didn't have those. Where what you would call a food swamp. We have an overabundance of fast food restaurants and chains, but not a lot of local healthy food. And so something that we started doing was create a farm school network where we created and partnered with different schools and churches here in the community to create community gardens And so the loop is a vehicle that starts to connect the community to those local gardens and then back to the loop. And so if you joined us for the beginning of this call, you saw the loop. It starts number 1 at the future site of the FreshLo Hub, because that's where everything will culminate. But basically, it all started from food access and the need to access healthy food.
Fantastic. Erin, what brought Artway to life?
So I mentioned it briefly, but I appreciate the opportunity to expand on it. So if food access was the driving force for FreshLo, it's transit access has been the driving force for 303 Artway. And again, it was that this all came about before the A-line train opened, but with the understanding that that was a huge public investment coming to the edge of Northeast Park Hill, but not actually serving Northeast Park Hill. It was just kind of shuttling people back and forth between the airport, Stapleton, and downtown. And we wanted to help the community kind of actually take advantage of this incredible investment of infrastructure that was coming to their neighborhood, so that they could actually be a part of that as well. And so that was kind of the initial impetus. And then again, through our other conversations, it also just came about that we do a lot of work around anti-displacement efforts, kind of working against the market forces that are leading to and exacerbating gentrification. And so for us, the cultural heritage piece really rose to the top as well, in terms of this is a neighborhood we want the infrastructure to serve the people who are there, and that everyone deserves to live in a community that has complete streets and access to proper sidewalks that work for them and that are thoughtful and that are at a pedestrian scale. Some things that we didn't start with, but that we've learned, are the importance of lighting, just having safe lighting. And so we just wanted to we started with the transit and the cultural heritage, but it's expanded in terms of what types of things we can do in this effort, which has been really exciting to really, dig in and learn what members of the community want to see. But it was really those two pieces that we wanted to serve this community that was not being heard, and help to elevate their voices and their needs to the city to be able to prioritize some projects that really need to happen in Northeast Park Hill.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Adam, I suspect you're going to tell us about a moment John Desmond walked in the door and said, "Hey, I have this really cool, crazy idea." But what was the start of the 5280 loop idea?
Well, I do remember that moment. I was actually at a coffee shop when I first met John. He was like, "Here's this idea we're working on." But I think that the real idea started before that. It came from the Northeast Downtown Neighborhood Plan, and they were looking at 21st Street as a really kind of a street that was not maybe used to its best potential, as it dead ends between Coors Field and Benedict Fountain Park. There's not a lot of through traffic going through there, and actually cars weren't even supposed to cross Broadway. And previously there wasn't a nice little curb to prevent that. But the street itself did not have a lot of people on it. We did some pedestrian counts on the street and found pretty much 0 people. But if you actually went onto Larimer Street and the street crossing 21st Street, there were 700 to 900 people crossing every single hour. So an amazing amount of people there walking right by this street that is not being used by people, not being used by cars, a little bit of bikes because it was a bikeway coming in downtown. And so there was a great idea to reimagine that street and think about it in a new way and bring outdoor park space to a neighborhood that has pretty much no parks for the amount of people living there. And so that idea was really moving forward. It was a partnership that saw, well, that's happening. And if you look around the city, there was a similar project happening as well. So Golden Triangle was looking at Coma Street and wanting to create a neighborhood greenway to reimagine it. The state was looking at reimagining Sherman Street as a Capitol Mall. Rarity Campus was looking at redoing 11th and creating a shared street and better connect their quad onto new housing coming in. Alma Lincoln Park was trying to find better ways to connect Mariposa to the Arts District on Santa Fe and to all their park systems and create those great connections. And so if you kind of step back a little bit, you can see how all of these different neighborhood initiatives could be brought together under one cohesive vision. So that's what we, in our role, started to do, to work with each of the different neighborhoods to talk about how we can move those ideas forward on a cohesive vision. And so that's where it all began.
All right, thank you, Adam. And Chanti, take us back in time.
Yeah, so just to kind of set the stage for that, Denver's Westwood neighborhood is really densely populated. It's diverse in the population, culturally rich, and then also very young. So the neighborhood has the highest percent of children under the age of 19 of all the neighborhoods in the city of Denver. And with that, they also have the highest rate of childhood obesity. And so these were some statistics that residents knew about back in 2013 and had been already working towards figuring out built environment solutions to getting kids and families more active in the neighborhood through a Healthy Places grant. And so Westwood Unidos, a neighborhood organization, was really championing this idea of getting people out and moving, and then partnering that with actual physical changes to the built environment. So I believe it was in 2015 the city conducted planning process for the neighborhood plan in Westwood. And through that, they conducted a lot of community outreach to ask, questions about what the concerns were. And through that process, residents brought up a number of issues. And one of the main ones was not having safe streets and safe routes for their families to walk throughout the neighborhood. The neighborhood is bisected by Morrison Road at an angle. And so you kind of get this two different parts of the neighborhood created and very disconnected from one another. Until a couple years ago, there wasn't a way to safely cross as a pedestrian from the east side to the west side of Morrison Road. So there was all of these issues that the residents knew about, and the neighborhood plan really provided an opportunity to document it in a way that we could bring partners together around the idea of coming up with creative solutions. So Westwood Unidos, as well as Buku West and the Trust for Public Land, along with the City of Denver, both Parks and Rec and at the time Public Works, came together around a table to think through what we could really do collectively and leveraging different projects that we all had that were related to the neighborhood. And so some of the key points were improved pedestrian safety, so addressing the Morrison Road challenges. The neighborhood has really narrow sidewalks, and so a lot of residents end up just walking in the streets or through the alleys, and so wanting to create safer paths through that. Another issue that came up was water quality. So there are parts of the neighborhood that flood really bad when we have those flash flood storms, and trying to figure out creative ways that we can bring in green infrastructure to start to address those issues, as well as tree canopy. Westwood has a very low tree canopy, and so that means it becomes really, really hot in the summer, and it's not a comfortable environment to be out walking or biking throughout the neighborhood. So all of these ideas came together with a group of partners that has grown in size, and we really have taken that to these next steps where we've created the implementation plan and then the wayfinding plan. And through that, I think that what you're seeing now is the culmination from really a neighborhood community-driven vision.
That's awesome. So I've been writing questions as you've been talking, and you're all such content experts that I've had to cross them all out and keep regenerating the questions because you keep answering them before I've even asked. But I see some great questions in the comments, and I'm going to combine one next, not yet, that's on funding streams and a possible joint strategy. So just put that in the back of your head. Right now, what I want to ask you is, you talked a lot about the genesis of your idea, and what happens typically after that is once you build your supporters and you create a concept and you start to get out there, you run into one of two things: either some type of insurmountable barrier or opposition, or a leap ahead moment where you discover an opportunity for a really impactful partnership, like some moment that becomes very defining for your project or your effort. So the question I'll ask now, and please don't answer both of them, but talk about an impactful moment. It was a challenge, it was an immediate opportunity, or a partnership. What helped define your work? And at this point, I'm going to ask you guys to self-select who's talking first.
I could jump back in. That's fine. I really would like to call attention to the last, basically, I think it was last year's summit where we all came together, and we discovered that we were working kind of in silos. We each were working on different loops in different parts of the city, didn't really know each other. I think that moment for us was really something that launched us ahead, because I was able to make really great connections with the folks around the table. Since then, we've been able to get together to find out what everybody's doing. But I think that for us, what was really impactful has been that partnership with the Trust for Public Lands, and then also to see the process that the Westwood Via Verde is taking on. I was able to join them and just kind of observe and learn from their wayfinding plan. And so now we're in the process of trying to get an implementation plan done, and then also, really placing a lot of value on that wayfinding plan as well. But being able to learn from the other loops that are taking place simultaneously around the city. We might all be at different stages, but really looking to them to learn from them has been really important and very valuable for us.
I would like to follow up on that. I agree. Sorry, if it's okay for me to jump in there, because yes, that was definitely a key point for us with 303 as well. And I would be remiss if I do not expressly mention the key partners that we have behind the scenes doing the work, which is also Trust for Public Land, helping us go into this next phase, and then Radian, which is the state's only nonprofit real estate development, architecture group. But they've been really amazing with creative ways of engaging community, and then they helped put together this corridor study for us. And it's from that study we took community input, and then we also have had a lot of meetings with folks at the city, and we're always kind of through folks at the city, and also TPL having had that relationship with Westwood Via Verde, to be able to for them to help inform where we should be going with this as well, and so that we are not continuing to just kind of bombard the city with all these different ideas. But if we can, we're able to come together and say, no, we're able to learn, okay, this is how they did this with Via Verde. So, is there maybe that path is already, we can kind of follow that in some ways. We've been able to also form really amazing partnerships with the Safe Routes to School program with the city, for example. So that's now part of our implementation plan, is a certain section between the Holly or Skyline Park and Smith Elementary School. So that's also helping with different funding sources. And so all of those types of things and how to leverage has been really helpful. And I really do appreciate all of these loops being able to communicate together. I love seeing the map at the beginning that showed, where all these loops are, and that they're kind of fairly evenly spaced if you're looking at the map across, which I thought was really is really exciting, that we're really meeting these needs in a lot of different types of areas of our city.
I'll jump in. I'm really hoping that this moment is a major kind of point of change for us as we rethink things in this COVID world, and find what we've learned from what other of these loops are doing, and what the Open Streets Trucks program has done. and I think be able to move pretty quickly. I think our last inflection point was when we got a large grant from the Colorado Health Foundation to have the health focus and move this forward, do lots of community outreach, and kind of get to where we were. And then I think we were in a difficult spot of, okay, now we have a really big vision, really expensive design guidelines, and how do we kind of take that first chunk off? And we're, working closely with different partners and trying to figure that out. And I think this moment has allowed us to rethink things. So I'm hoping we can look back at this in a year from now and really see as a major change.
And I'll jump in with our, I think one of the first moments that really kind of brought this idea to life was back in early 2016. We convened a group of, I think, upwards of 30 different partners in Westwood. So people from different organizations, city agencies. I think we had almost 6 or 7 different city departments represented at one time. We brought all these folks together in one room. And the moment that I remember it really kind of coming to life was we had posted this big printout of the Westwood neighborhood. And this, we went through an exercise with everyone writing down what projects they had going on in the neighborhood, either a project that was active or a project that was in a planning phase or that they just knew about, and put it up on the wall. And there were, the map was covered in these sticky notes with all these different projects. And I think that it became real for all of us to realize that there's so much energy and work going on in the Westwood neighborhood that this loop, this greenway, could really pull it together and pull all of these partners together so that we're not just working in our own little world, but we're really working together to further a bigger neighborhood scale change, right? And I think that's really the moment, at least for me, and I know that others in our coalition talk about that when we laid it out there, we could really see the connections as well. And from that, we were able to build off of it in a way where we were now able to leverage different projects with each other. So even within the city of Denver, there were different projects happening between Denver Parks and Rec, where they were doing some park work, and transportation, where they were doing some different infrastructure projects. And all of a sudden we can start to figure out, how do we position ourselves to create, a cohesive approach to built environment work in the neighborhood. And so from that, now fast forward to about a year ago, and the Trust for Public Land is working with the city of Denver on a brand new pocket park in the neighborhood, which is a part of the Via Verde. And Dottie is working on this big infrastructure project along Kentucky Avenue. And rather than having those projects, exist in, different places in the city as far as the way they're going to be built out, now we've come together as a coalition of partners and we're presenting this as one project. So the infrastructure, like the bump outs, the green infrastructure that are happening along the road, are now going to be a part of the bigger pocket park. So it did change our schedules and timing on those projects because they're not happening individually anymore. But now we're working together to pull off this bigger vision. So I think that's a couple examples of how, there have been key moments in the partnership that have really driven the work forward.
Sure. I have one quick question for one of you, because it's in the chat and I thought it was useful. And I think you have talked right around it, Chandi, but not quite at it. Has anybody run into having to plan alongside an area neighborhood plan, and how's that going? So I need one person to jump into the fray here.
I mean, I can jump in. I mentioned it before that the neighborhood plan for Westwood started, I believe, in 2015, and we had that was about the time we were starting our conversations. And initially, those were kind of happening, parallel to each other. We weren't directly engaging as much with the neighborhood plan. We knew it was happening, and we actually went to one of their meetings and just set up kind of our station, so people started to get to know us. And then what happened is, even though they were side by side, we were able to continue that open channel of communication with the city. We had one of the planners who was directly involved with that planning process attending our meetings, so that he was aware of the different projects and things that people were talking about from like the neighborhood side of things, so that things like the Via Verde that I believe really did come out of this idea of a greenway. The greenway was in the neighborhood plan. The Westwood Via Verde looks very different than what that original neighborhood plan shows, but the ideas really, built off of each other. And I'll stop there because I, want to let somebody else jump in if they had.
No, I think that was great. I mean, it sort of sounds to me like you had to do a lot of the work to be sure that those two efforts became entwined. So it sounds like we have a little work there to do as a city to be sure that we continue to mesh those efforts.
And if I could just add to that briefly, that there's no neighborhood planning effort happening for the north and northeast Park Hill. Currently, South Park Hill is part of the east area planning effort, but north and northeast Park Hill will be part of a future planning effort. But we did make a concerted effort to look at other city policies that exist in terms of Blueprint Denver, pedestrian plan, the station area plan for 40th and Colorado, things like that, so that we could look at what the city had already said they wanted to do and see if any of that aligned with what we were seeing, so that those would be those quicker wins potentially, that we could go to the city and say, you already said you wanted to do this. Now help us help you. We can help, bring community around this. And this is something you said you wanted to do that you potentially have funded. Or maybe if we're showing that there's a lot of community support for some of these things, that we can help raise the profile of some of those things and actually get them funding priority rather than them just sitting in a plan.
I love it. Okay, so I have some quick hit questions because we're going to be wrapping up here soon. So for each of you, and very quickly, is there a joint strategy here coming together for either funding purposes, political power? And if so, have you talked about it yet? Do you have any ideas you'd like to share at this point? And I'll toss that out to the group for some quick responses.
I mean, I don't think we have a joint strategy. I mean, I think it's fun to look at the map to see all of the loops around. And I think, how amazing would this be, 10 years from now, if all these were completed and they're all linked together, and it becomes a way we rethink our right of way, and we rethink how we move about our city, and connect to the people in our communities. And I think because we're now all talking about this, it opens up that possibility of a cohesive citywide strategy. And so we do our loop meetings where we all get together and talk, and I think that has helped us a lot to communicate with each other and be aware of each other. And I think growing from that will be that citywide strategy.
Any other thoughts?
I think that the role that Trust for Public Land has been taking expanded beyond first that they were just looking at urban trails at all, and then that their involvement with Via Verde and now with FreshLo and with us specifically. Yes, we have not kind of formalized that loop group as much as maybe we can, but I know that we are open to that in terms of, because we definitely don't want to be duplicating efforts, and we can definitely leverage if there would be kind of a big pot of money that everyone could submit particular projects for, something like that. But I do feel that the role of TPL is kind of their profile is being raised in all of these, and that they can kind of help to be a strong convener of these efforts as well.
Great. So I'd like to wrap up and give you all an opportunity to tell the audience how they can support you. There was a question in the chat about funding streams and challenges that you've had in COVID. So if we could sort of go around the horn and you could let the folks know what are your big funding challenges and how can people today get involved with your project and help you out in the coming months. And so we'll start with Myra.
I think continuing to participate and become involved in summits and projects like this, where we're getting educated more and more to be strong advocates for the built environment, to make sure that the streets are prioritizing people and cyclists over vehicles. I think that's step one, because something that we've seen as we've continued to advocate for safer streets in the community is that there's a disconnect sometimes between that car culture and wanting to have safer streets. And I think that for us, something that we're running into is making sure that we're engaging and educating and really helping to see that other side where we can have streets that are safe, that prioritize pedestrians, that are safe for children, that we can have those in our communities, that we should have those in the community. I think that that's, at least from what I've seen in our processes and the work that we do, I think that's been the number one thing, making sure that we're all on that same page.
Thanks. And Erin?
I would agree with all of that. Our funding for community engagement in 2019 was from the Colorado Health Foundation. This year, it's TPL helping on our design drawings. But what really helps unlock funding for us is being able to show community support and community priorities. And so the level of engagement is incredibly important for being able to kind of prove the concept that this is something that really is being asked for by members of community. It's not just kind of these organizations saying, trust us. It's really is that this is on behalf of community. This is what they're asking for. And so the more just kind of engagement that there is, the more that we are able to identify and quantify community priorities, the more that we are listened to by the funding community. So that's very helpful.
Thanks. Adam?
And I think the number one way we want to see people get involved in now is kind of starting to take over this project. We're really in that point of, okay, we have a cohesive vision, we have a cohesive design guidelines. Now it's time to hand it over to every, whether it's a developer or every community, to make it their own, make it their own project. So, you know, whether that is talking about it in your neighborhood meetings, or taking people on a ride to the City 280, or if we get this grant program to give out money, you know, apply for funds to add in planters, to add in paint, to add in parklets. This is a stage where you know, the vision's there, and now it's upon each of the neighborhoods to make it, you know, what is special for their own place. And so we're, you know, we can't do all of that everywhere. We're just here as a way to kind of help carry that torch, but really hand over the baton to neighborhoods and the groups to make it whatever they see as what the needs for their community. So I think it's going to be a fun time as we move forward and make this process. But keep talking about it, keep talking about all of these loops and what we want our streets to be in our city. I think the more we talk about it, the more we show people how these loops can connect places and people together, people are going to more and more get why this is so important for our city.
Thank you. And Chandi with the last word.
Yes, in the last minute. You know, I think that what all three of them said is so important as far as, you know, elevating your presence, elevating, you know, just more knowledge around the benefits of these multimodal loops, as well as, you know, looking to community to champion these ideas. I think that that's what we've really, that's been at the heart of the Westwood Via Verde, is ensuring that it's still the community voice and the community vision that is driving this project. And, you know, although I'm with the Trust for Public Land, the Westwood Via Verde is a collaborative project. It's not our project, it's everyone's project. And we really want as many people, kind of what Adam said, more people to get involved and, you know, share this vision with with others. And from a funding standpoint, it really is about that implementation phase. So starting with the implementation of the wayfinding, looking for opportunities to partner with different organizations or businesses that would be maybe interested in a sponsorship or just getting involved in some way, as well as in bringing that to the bigger projects. You know, we have multiple projects, like I mentioned. There's the city is doing the Kentucky Avenue. We're working in partnership with them on the Pocket Park. Kayla and I are working on these murals at different intersections. So there are a number of different projects that are tangible projects that people, if you're interested, can get involved with. And so, you know, I know folks have our contact information, and if you want to learn more, I think we're happy to find time to talk.
Well, thanks to each of you. This has been a real treat for me. These are 4 of Denver's very best community leaders. And I want to thank each of you for the work that you do and also for sharing your stories today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of our speakers. You did a wonderful job. Thanks for your time on a Saturday, and yeah, for your advocacy in your community. Just let everyone know that we have one more session today in the summit. That's at 3 o'clock. Make sure you join us back for that. That's going to be our Fast and Curious closing session. And if you would take a moment to let us know how we did, how did you enjoy this summit? This was our first ever virtual summit. So there should be a link you got this morning that has a link to the evaluation survey. So please take a moment to fill that out. Let us know how we can improve and make this a better experience for everyone. And so stay tuned. We'll be posting recordings of all these sessions as well. And yeah, thank you again for everyone for embarking on this virtual journey with us and being a part of this movement. So thank you.